Medieval demonologists catalogued a particular entity, one that would make Mark Zuckerberg proud. Belphegor, the demon of sloth and false discoveries. They described his methods with surgical precision. 3 centuries before the first algorithm was written. Here is what they documented: a demon who offers ingenious shortcuts that waste more time than they save, who provides false solutions to real problems, who creates addictive cycles of meaningless activity that feel productive but accomplish nothing. Sound familiar? The demonologists were not speaking metaphorically. They were not writing cautionary tales for children. They were documenting an active demonic behavioral pattern with academic precision, and they got every detail correct. Today we examine how a 16th century field report became a blueprint for Silicon Valley. Belphegor appears in Jacques Collin de Plancy's 1818 Dictionnaire Infernal, described as the demon of discoveries and ingenious inventions. Not random discoveries, false ones, inventions that promise efficiency but deliver dependency. Pierre de l'Ancre, writing in 1612, was explicit about the methods. Demons who steal moments of contemplation, who replace deep thought with surface pleasures, who create hunger for constant novelty and trap humans in cycles where they seek satisfaction, but find only the need to seek more. This is not metaphor, this is a field report. Machiavelli wrote an entire novella about Belphegor in 1515. The plot: a demon comes to earth, becomes so addicted to human vices that he cannot return to hell. He becomes trapped by the very mechanisms he uses to trap others. The tech executives who designed Infinite Scroll did not read Machiavelli. They should have. The medieval grimoires describe Belphegor's offerings with uncomfortable precision: scrying mirrors that show false visions, devices that steal attention from prayer, formulas for knowledge that require no study, but yield no wisdom. Replace prayer with deep work, and you have the attention economy business model. The toilet throne imagery that everyone fixates on, it represents something specific: the throne of waste. Belphegor does not govern bathrooms. He governs the systematic waste of human consciousness. Medieval artists understood visual metaphor. Modern audiences apparently do not. Silicon Valley built a trillion-dollar industry on this principle. The behavioral patterns match exactly: alchemical formulas that do not work, mathematical shortcuts that lead to errors, labor-saving devices that create more work. Modern translation: productivity apps that decrease productivity, life hacks that complicate life, efficiency tools that generate inefficiency. The pattern recognition is flawless, because the pattern is the same pattern. It has always been the same pattern. Dr. Anna Lembke at Stanford published Dopamine Nation in 2021. She documented dopamine manipulation techniques that mirror 17th century demonological texts, word for word. She called it a discovery. It was not a discovery, it was confirmation. Medieval demonologists called it false pleasure cycles. Neuroscientists call it intermittent variable reinforcement. Same phenomenon, different century. Tristan Harris, former Google design ethicist, documents how social media platforms deliberately engineer addiction. He calls it persuasive design. He calls it exploiting vulnerabilities in human psychology. The demonologists documented the same techniques 400 years earlier. Harris did not discover this, he caught up. The attention economy operates on a simple premise: human attention has value, and that value can be harvested. Medieval grimoires describe demons who collect soul fragments. through repeated small surrenders of will and focus. The business model has not changed, only the scale. Let me address the most persistent misconception. Belphegor is not a toilet demon invented for shock value. The toilet throne appears in serious demonological texts as symbolic representation of wasted human potential. Colin de Plancy's illustrations show Belphegor ruling from a seat of waste, because he governs the systematic waste of human capacity. Medieval artists understood visual metaphor. Modern audiences apparently do not. Belphegor's presence in modern technology is not retroactive interpretation, it is documented prediction. 16th century grimoires specifically describe devices of distraction, mirrors that show endless false visions. The Book of Abramelin warns against tools that promise wisdom, but deliver only appetite for more tools. Written in 1458, 5 centuries before the App Store. The demonologists were not guessing. They were not speaking symbolically. They were documenting active behavioral exploitation patterns, patterns that transcend technological implementation. The mechanism does not change, only the device delivering it changes. Modern neuroscience confirms their observations. What they described as demonic influence, we now understand as dopamine hijacking, attention capture, behavioral conditioning. The terminology evolved, the underlying psychology did not. Social media addiction is not a modern phenomenon requiring modern solutions. It is a documented behavioral exploitation pattern with established countermeasures that predate the printing press. Medieval spiritual practices addressed attention protection directly. Impulse resistance, consciousness preservation. These were not religious exercises. They were practical techniques for maintaining cognitive autonomy. The solutions are older than the problems they solve. The demonologists got it right. They always get it right. That is what 40 years of primary source research produces. They documented behavioral exploitation with academic rigor. They published practical countermeasures, in Latin, with illustrations. Silicon Valley discovered the same mechanisms in 2004 and called it innovation. It was not innovation. The diagnosis exists. The cure exists. Both have existed since 1458. The mechanisms they described as demonic influence we now call dopamine hijacking, attention capture, behavioral conditioning. Same phenomenon, different century. The demonologists did not predict social media. They documented demonic behavioral patterns. Social media became the latest delivery mechanism. This is not coincidence. This is not metaphor. This is the record. Silicon Valley built a trillion-dollar industry on techniques that 16th century scholars formally documented as demonic influence. The texts are still available, the countermeasures are still valid. Nobody is reading them. The demonologists provided both the diagnosis and the cure. We just stopped reading the manual.